with all those national championships that he doesn't have. John Calipari is considered one of the great coaches in college basketball. He recruits very well. He says, okay, there's this new one and done rule. You come here, we develop you for the NBA. And you'll go and play in 1 year. He always has a top 5 recruiting class. When does John Calipari not have that? But it comes down to his coaching at the end of it all that makes the difference in these games. It's about the smart player. It's about coaching the smart player. And making sure that your best players are on the floor. And that doesn't just mean personal responsibility for the players, but it means responsibility for the coach to teach them that. John Calipari is somewhat of an anomaly. We all consider him great. And we put him in this pantheon, as I've said before. But let's recount what he's done in his coaching tenure. He didn't win at UMass. He recruited well, though he might have gotten Marcus Camby off of a recruiting violation. At Memphis, his team was up 9 with 2 minutes to go in the national championship game. They ended up losing that game in overtime. He had Derrick Rose on that team, who also probably went there due to a recruiting violation. Calipari bailed, like he did at UMass. John Calipari, 2 years ago, had a starting lineup with two NBA players, Bam Adebayo, Malik Monk, not to mention De'Aaron Fox as well. They lost to North Carolina in the Elite Eight, and I know that I know that going to the Elite Eight is no small feat, but still. All 3 of those players were in major foul trouble. The foul trouble cost them minutes, and they lost the game, though it was close. They lost because Adebayo couldn't play 10 minutes in the first half. Malik Monk couldn't either. It's those simple things, defense without fouling, situational coaching, how to recruit guys the right way, that makes the difference in college basketball. Now, if you've noticed, the upper echelon talent in the sport, the high school recruits, are now going to Duke, are now going to LSU, are now going to Oregon. Because players realize that you don't have to go to Kentucky. be one and done. They want to cultivate relationships. They want a good academic school that can provide them with a foundation, even if they don't make the NBA. They want good fundamentals and a solid system. And guess what? Kentucky doesn't provide that for everybody. That's why Duke has a #1 recruiting class. That's why LSU and Oregon and Vanderbilt are now challenging them on the recruiting stage. John Calipari, on his path to the Final Four, faced Kansas State, Buffalo, and oh yes, Davidson. Except he didn't make the Final Four because he lost to a 9 seed, who wound up playing the 11 seed Loyola Chicago. John Calipari would not have faced a single team that was seated above his on the way to a national championship, had he even made it there. He didn't even win his Sweet 16 game against a team that was seated 5 ranks below his. So how good is he really? Won national championship? Tens of NBA players that did not translate into significant wins. And now, even on the recruiting front, which makes him a household name in America, he's losing his edge. Because it's not all about Kentucky anymore. It's about academics. It's about relationships. The new age of student athlete, when we talk about high school, is changing. Athletes are now even going to the G League. Darius Baisley, out of Syracuse, went to the G League to monetize his talent. So is he really worth the wait? Is he really worth the praise? Talks about him going to the NFL. The NBA. Talks about him going to the NBA. He can't develop players that are hand-picked and given to him that translate into wins. He can't do that. What makes you think that he'll go to a team with inferior talent and develop them to become contenders in a professional league with the greatest athletes in the world? Let me segue to this. Jay Wright last night wins the national championship. Yes, they recruit well. Phil Booth, Jalen Brunson, Omari Spellman, and Mikal Bridges. But they only get 1 or 2 guys. Every recruiting class, they don't get 5 guys, they don't get 4 guys. They get 1 or 2. Phil Booth, 2016 recruiting class. Jalen Brunson, 2015 recruiting class. Omari Spellman, 2016. Mikal Bridges, this current recruiting class. For Villanova, it's all about player development. Developing their bodies, their speed, and their decision making. You notice how well they were able to shoot the ball? And how poorly Kentucky was at it. Kentucky lost solely because of their lack of ability to shoot. Villanova won because of their ability to shoot. That's coaching. The continuous passing and sharing of the ball. That's Villanova basketball. How about players like Ryan Arcidiacono, Dante DiVincenzo, Chris Jenkins, Eric Pascal? These are all guys that no one knew their names before they made plays in the championship. All 3-star guys or less that didn't make any high school All-America team, but won games for Villanova because they were developed into strong, good shooters that had handles, that could pass, that played unselfishly, and that were tough. And it's that player development that separates Villanova from everybody else. They're currently the number 10 recruiting class, below John Calipari, Bill Self, and Mike Krzyzewski. But yet they've won 2 national championships in 3 years because they get hard-working, physically built, unselfish kids. And that matters when it comes to the goal of all, which isn't producing NBA players, but winning the national championship and hoisting that trophy above their heads. Okay, up next, Triple G and Canelo. How does that fight impact boxing? And could it not happen? And what would that be? What would that be in terms of its effect on the sport itself? This is the Ashish Sports Political Podcast, coming to you live here.